Hello, group. Welcome to Action Rock Corner. I'm your host, Richard May. Today, looking forward to this one, I'm going to talk about my 15 favorite songs from the rock and roll period of Gary Moore. That would be between 1978, not quite his debut solo record. There was a Gary Moore band record in 1973. From 78 through 89, just before he started his blues period, up to his death. With an exception or two, as I'll get around to it. Gary was a restless artist. Couldn't stay in one silo for long. Did a lot of blues rock at his beginning with his first band Skid Row. Not that Skid Row. He allowed the hair metal Skid Row to have the band name because he was going to use it from his original band coming out of Ireland. And he was in Colosseum II doing some prog rock with Don Airey, who had worked with a great deal more in his solo career. Don Airey currently is the keyboard player in Deep Purple in the 21st Century, Deep Purple Records. And Gary Moore for 2 stints in Thin Lizzy. So Gary was in his second stint was between 78 and 80 when he did leave to really begin his solo career, which is basically what this is going to be about. I'm not going to name, my rules. Not going to name things from his live records from the 80s. He's got a number of them. Are there more coming up? There's got to be more. It has to be. There's be more stuff. And this is a hell of a band. You see who is in the band? I think it's about here. Ian Pace, Neil Murray, fresh from being Whitesnake, the classic Whitesnake lineup. John Sloman from Uriah Heep, right? And Don Airey, like I was saying. Don Airey stayed next to Gary Moore after Colosseum II quite a bit, as we will discuss. Made in Japan, he rocked every night in Japan. It's a lot of great stuff. His blues stuff is very nice. I really appreciate the blues stuff more after doing this now because I realized how many ballads get stuffed into the Gary Moore rock records. Now, I'll give one thing away right now. I will not name anything from Wild Frontier. I know he had a hit with, what was it, Over the Hills, Far Away? Was a hit. There's a number of 12-inch versions in this. You know who does 12-inch versions? Dance music. And programmed. The problem with this record, I saw this tour. And I appreciated seeing this tour. That was the last American tour he did in America. Unless I missed something. I don't think I did. After this tour in America, never really get to see Gary Moore again. Europe and Japan still did, I'm sure. Japan, I'm sure. Europe, heck yeah. no drummer on this record. Heck of a band, Bob Daisley. Oh, Neil Carter from UFO, I had Gary Moore's side quite a bit on these records. No drummer. Someone got credit for drum programming. Gary isn't with us anymore. Like I said, Gary was restless. He did pursue drum programming again. Was it a different beat? I think I have it up there on his blues period. He didn't sit in one silo long. And that's basically what I got. Oh, I love his first proper solo record, Back on the Streets. I don't own it physically. And I'll tell you, the two times, I passed it up in college. I didn't even know who Gary Moore was yet. No one did. This is 1980. 1980, I'm in Mole's record store, second floor storefront, or office storefront on High Street, the Ohio State University. And they had, records for a quarter, 50 cents, 75 cents, and $1, plus the stuff that cost for a couple bucks. Great store. I did not know who Gary Moore was yet. At the front of the quarter section was Gary Moore, Back on the Streets. A different cover than what Europe got. He's just a pair of sunglasses on the street, just standing there looking cool. Europe got a goofier cover of him being released from jail or something. And it's seared in my memory. I had this opportunity to get this cool looking record for a quarter, because at that time I'm just beginning my adventure of buying lots and lots and lots of records. I didn't know who he was. I needed the quarter for something else that wasn't as good as Back on the Streets. Second opportunity, I think it was last year. And I just I need Back on the Streets by Gary Moore. Hey, we can get it from a distributor for $12. And I went, something else I want. I'll get back to that. And when I got back to that a week or two later, gone. That was my two chances at a very reasonable price to get Gary Moore Back on the Streets. Back on the Street, I guess. And I'm listening to that for this exercise, is my memory, because I've heard it since. It's proggy, It's great. This is best album. Right now, my favorite album is I Don't Own It. I hear it online whenever I want. It's on YouTube. It's a great record. A lot of instrumentals. I'm going to get to instrumentals in a second. And some rockers. I blew it. Great record. But let's get to my 15 favorite songs by Gary Moore. Number 15, Dallas Warhead, from Live at the Marquee. I think this is my one record I'm going to pick from a live record. Dallas Warhead is not available as a studio track. It's only available here. It's an instrumental, and it's basically a showcase for the drummer. In this case, Tommy Aldridge. Why? He always worked with the best drummers: Cozy Powell, Ian Pace, and Tommy Aldridge. And he does a record of drum programming for Wild Frontiers. Never mind. Get on track, Mr. May. Dallas Warhead is great. 10 minutes. You know, a lot of cool drum solo. But when who's on keyboards on this? Of course, it's Don Airy. Don Airy, Gary, Tommy. Hell of a track. My number 15. Dallas Warhead. Number 14. Speak for Yourself, from his last rock record proper, After the War. And he gets a drummer again. And of course, when he gets a drummer, he doesn't screw around. He gets Cozy Powell. Okay? Speak for Yourself, for what we're going through today. An important song in my mind. So just when I'm looking through the tracks, it's like I gotta pick Speak for Yourself from After the War. Very nice song. You know, cool play. It got Bob Daisley on bass from Rainbow and Ozzy's band, and Neil Carter from UFO. And it's a nice, energetic track. It's cool. And a good message for today. Number 13. Some of you may think this is low. Nuclear Attack from Dirty Fingers. Gary had a thing about nuclear war. Not the last song of nuclear war we're going to refer to, okay? And there's one or two that we left out. That I left out, that you, when you do your picks in the comments, you may pick more than 2 nuclear war songs. But Nuclear Attack, Don Airy, Tommy Aldridge, Jimmy Payne from Rainbow, and Charlie Hoon from Ted Nugent doing the singing. Hell of a band. That's a band. That's what you call your supergroup. Don Airy, Tommy Aldridge. You know, Tommy Aldridge drum for everybody. Then man, Ozzy, Whitesnake, and Jimmy Bain. Jimmy Bain, World War III. WW3, I think is how you pronounce it. Okay, I went obscure on you guys. But Rainbow. Jimmy Bain, Rainbow. There you go. And Wild Horses. Nuclear Attack, number 13. Number 12. About the only cover I did. But what a cover. Wishing Well from Corridors of Power. Another great band, Ian Pace, Neil Murray, fresh from Whitesnake, and Tommy Iyer on keyboards. You heard a lot of Tommy Iyer keyboards in your day. Shecker, solo Ian Gillan, you know, after the Gillan band broke up, and the later solo records. Tommy Iyer played with everybody. Wishing Well. Which, well, was a free song, wasn't it? Yes. Number 11. White Knuckles, Rockin' and Rollin' from G-Force. G-Force is not the strongest Gary Moore project. And it's supposed to be a band, not necessarily a Gary Moore solo record. But Gary Moore was in charge. Gary Moore moved to Los Angeles for a hot minute, trying to get Glenn Hughes to sign up. Of course, you know Glenn Hughes was in the middle of his horrendous drug habit that made him basically unemployable for about 15 years between his T Purple stint and him getting cleaned up in 1990. We'll get back to that in a while, but this is the first shot, and Glenn Hughes is not on this record, but we'll get to some Glenn Hughes with Gary Moore in a while. Who was playing on this? Mark Nossoff, drummer to a lot of cool people. Phil Lynot's solo records and Mike Nossoff drumming. Ian Gillan Band. And Jack Bruce records. Cool lineup. White Knuckles and Rockin' and Rollin'. This is my only pick from this record. Victims of the Future, the title track. Oh, that's a grinder. It's not necessarily a fast song, just a hell of a grinder. You get Neil, put it in my hand. You get Ian Pace and Neil Murray and Neil Carter. Victims of the Future. Damn, and it's just a grinding riff song. Victims of the Future. Absolutely great tune. My show, my rules. And my exception. Basically, I'm talking about between 78 and 89. But Gary Moore hating to be in a silo, yeah, he was doing great business with the blues after 1990. But in 2002, he gets together with Case Lewis from Skunk Sazy and the drummer from Primal Scream, Darren Mooney. He forms a band called Scars. It's a bit of blues, but it's also a bit of grunge and Hendrix. You know, Gary did a Hendrix tribute record live that I was listening to before I started doing this, pressing the record button. This, 2002. It would have done great business, could have done great business in the grunge era. But then Gary would have been seen as a poser, trying to make some of that grunge money in the 90s. And he wasn't like Neil Young, you know, being a pioneer of the grunge sound in his heyday. No. Gary Moore was prog, blues rock, and blues. Nothing resembling grunge. But here, Rectify. That's the song I want you to hear. Rectify. Gary sings, of course, but he sings differently. Very much a blues, grunge influence on the vocals, and it's just a nasty, grungy tune, Rectify. This record does go into blues as it goes along, but they had to rebrand it for a reason. This is not straight blues. Heck of a good record, but very different for Gary. Gary didn't last long. Died at 58 in 2011. He could never stand still. He's doing all kinds of things. Great band, great song, Scars. And he kept the drummer from that lineup for the Hendrix tribute later. Okay, I'm going to go back to after the war. Excuse me a moment. After the war. 4. Living on Dreams. I didn't do this on purpose. Rectify was a pretty nasty, angry, grungy song. Living on Dreams is the opposite of that. This is happy. He's living on dreams, and he's just happy-go-lucky. Talking about his lute, and he's just happy-go-lucky and living on dreams. Really happy song with Neil Carter, Bob Daisley, and Cozy Powell. Just a happy, peppy song, with some balls to it, but basically a nice, happy song. You'll like it if you've never heard it from after the war. A happy song in an album titled After the War? Okay, another one of Gary's anti-war songs. Oh, let's go back to Corridors of Power for number 7. I Can't Wait for Tomorrow. I don't like ballads. Yeah, well, a really good ballad with balls? Yeah, okay. This got balls. And it's not really about, is it about love? I don't know. But it's just a slow grinder with him just beating that guitar. And he can't wait for tomorrow. And it's just a hell of a thing. I wasn't going to name it at all. It's like, But then I'm hearing it. And just you have to go with it. And there's like a 12-minute version of it on one of the live records. My gosh. That's a hell of a workout. Heck of a guitar workout. Heck of a vocal. He could not wait for tomorrow. And this is an accident. Because here I, living on dreams, he's thinking about being young, and he's in the moment, and he's happy as hell. He's just dreaming of, I'm going to play in big arenas, and I got a future, and then my next pick, hell with it, I can't wait for tomorrow. Happy-go-lucky, and then he can't wait for tomorrow. Well, the difference that 7 years makes between 82 for I Can't Wait for Tomorrow and Quarters of Power, and 89 Living on Dreams, because by then he was doing good business in 89. All right. Haven't done this record yet. I got 2 from this record. Now I go back to my Glenn Hughes and Gary Moore stories. The second try to get the drug-addled Glenn Hughes to hook up with Gary Moore and do a record. And Glenn Hughes did a fraction of this record. Couldn't do the whole thing. But he did about half of it. This is a patched together record, multiple producers and multiple lineups. But the 2 songs I pick for 6 and 5, Nothing to Lose. My God, what a riff. Gary really did not do riff songs. But when he chooses to do a riff and grind that riff for 3 or 4 minutes, holy crap. It's a heck of a thing to hear. Nothing to Lose. Neil Carter's along. Gary Ferguson's on drums, who has worked with Glenn Hughes extensively. And Glenn's on bass and singing. Nothing to Lose. Hell of a tune, hell of a riff. Number 5. All Messed Up. I heard All Messed Up for the first time on C-Rock, when C-Rock was a thing in Cleveland. Maybe you don't know, but C-Rock was trying to be a hard rock, heavy metal radio station. Didn't quite catch it. And I heard All Messed Up there first. All Messed Up is about the singer, Glenn Hughes. He didn't write the lyrics. I think Neil Carter and Gary was trying to do an intervention with these lyrics and Glenn. His lyrics is about the protagonist, singer, being so messed up on drugs he can't find a door. He's messed up. And I don't think it worked. This is 1985. It took another 4 or 5 years before Glenn cleaned up his act. Hell of a riff, hell of a song, funny as hell, especially in the context, it's Glenn singing it in the midst of his addictions. No, I don't think Glenn's covered the song in any of his sets. I don't think Glenn may still not be happy with his experience on this record. Made a few bucks, but maybe he wasn't happy with his experience on this record and having to sing All Messed Up. He cleaned up fine. But it's a hell of a song. You need to hear that. All Messed Up by Gary Moore on the Run for Cover record. And there's a couple other songs sung by Glenn. I think there's 2 more sung by Glenn. Number 4. From After the War, which I just buried. Yeah. After the War. Oh, I love funny songs. All Messed Up is humorous. Lead Clones is hilarious and rocks. At this time in 1985, a number of bands, shall we name them? No, let's not. No names, please. No names, please. Certain bands in the early 80s was borrowing their tunes after hearing their Led Zeppelin records a lot. So Gary, this is 89. So I mean, this has been going on for years. So 89, Gary has enough of certain bands. Wink, wink. Which one? A number. And so Gary works through about every Led Zeppelin motif, riff, and gets Ozzy Osbourne to sing it. Ozzy is not necessarily the first person you would hire to do Robert Plant's gig, but Ozzy does a good job. Ozzy even does the falling down the rail thing. You know the one. You know that vocal effect of Plant's falling down the well. And so the lyrics are all about stop ripping off Led Zeppelin. Stop it. We had enough. Gary's so pissed, of course, he becomes a blues man a year after this. Okay? He had enough of redoing all these redone riffs from Zeppelin or wherever else. So he goes into the blues a year later. So in this song with Tommy Iyer, no, who's doing keyboard? No, Nick Carter is doing the keyboard. Forgive me, I'm not reading my notes correctly. Neil Carter is doing the keyboards for a lot of the keyboard effects for the Zeppelin that John Paul Jones did. And they just go through so you can't redo these Zeppelin riffs anymore because he just does it in one song. It's flipping great, man. Lead Clones. After the war, you have to hear it. You have to. It's flipping great. Number 4. Yes, there are 3 songs I love more than that from Gary Moore. And you have to be pretty damn good to beat out Lead Clones. And all messed up. All right. Put this back in my hand. I got to find Corridors of Power. Because you guys are going, when are you going to name End of the World? And when you mean End of the World's number 3. End of the World. Holy moly. That's over the top, heavy rock, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it. You know, overwrought, overworked, my gosh, that's a guitar workout right there. With Tommy Iyer, that's where my eyes misread. Tommy Iyer's keyboards. Okay, I have to pick up my notes here. It's Neil somebody. Yeah, it has to be Neil Murray on bass. And Bobby Chouinard on drums. Bobby Chouinard's a pretty good drummer. He's drummed with everybody. I think he drummed with Tommy Bolin, if I remember correctly, but I haven't done my homework, so don't quote me. End of the World. Hell of a... that is just amazing. And it just, the lyrics is not happy music. It's not happy. It's not a happy song. It's about the end of the world. And it's not a folk song about the end of the world either. No. End of the world's going to be loud. And this is loud. And a hell of a guitar workout. End of the world from Corridors of Power. Absolutely amazing. And there's other nuclear war songs he's did. Hiroshima. Whoever else I'm supposed to remember. My top two. I'm going to cheat. Is that from a Gary Moore album? Cozy Powell solo, his first solo record, Over the Top, killer. And it's killer. And you get Cozy Powell, of course, on drums. Don Airy on keyboards. And Jack Bruce on bass. That's a superstar lineup to do literally a killer song. It just rocks your ass off without lyrics. No lyrics. This is an instrumental record. Absolutely stoking instrumental record. And killer. Cozy, Jack Bruce, Don Airy, and Gary. Just ripping it up. Absolutely amazing. Of course, you can also find it on the best of Cozy Powell. And another one I could have named somewhere in my top 15, The Blister from the Tilt record. Absolutely great stuff. Gary can sing, and Gary found some good singers to sing for him. But he just shuts up and plays a guitar and does an instrumental. That's what killed me about Back on the Streets, his first solo record proper in '78. A lot of cool instrumentals, probably stuff he had laying around from that he didn't use for Colosseum II. Just amazing guitar work. Let's go back to this. We started with this, we're going to end with this because I don't own a copy of Back on the Streets. And it's a holiday weekend, and you may hear some firecrackers faintly. I hear them. I guess maybe, hopefully you won't. It's rude. We'll go back to this. And Thursday, this is being released Saturday. Thursday, I did a review of a blues live record just released. And from Gary, 3 years before he died. The blues session. And nice blues, record. And I lamented that he did not do what is one hit. The one hit that Gary had. I guess he had a hit on Royal Frontier, they tell me. But he also had a hit with Phil Lynott, Go Writing the Song with Phil, Parisian Walkways. Did I say it right? Parisian? Let's say I did. I really pushed it Thursday. Parisian Walkways. Yes, I Googled it. I listened multiple times. You say it like this, Parisian walkways. How do you say it like 3 different times already? At least I had to Parisian walkways. And Parisian walkways. Oh. And of course, live. And that's why I hold a copy of the live record. Because live, the key part of hearing him play Parisian walkways live is that sustained note. How long can you sustain that note? Instead of a guitar solo, it just sustains the note for as long as he can. 15, 20, I never timed it. He holds it a long time. And we love it. We love when Gary Moore sustained that note in the solo, a Parisian walkway. And Phil Lynott or Gary, you just talk the lyrics. It's not sung, it's spoken lyrics. And there's a video on YouTube of pictures of Paris as the song plays. It's a great video. It's a great song. It should be a staple on American classic rock radio, but it's not. Nothing by Gary is. But Parisian Walkway. Absolutely amazing song. And we miss Gary. We miss Phil. And that's my top 15. So if you like this video, give it a like. Encourage other people to think about their top 15 Gary Moore rock songs from his rock period. Subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. And leave a comment. What's your favorite Gary Moore rock era songs? You can cheat a bit, count. What songs did Gary Moore write in Thin Lizzy? Didn't even bother to look, because I wanted to just do Gary Moore solo records. And his Skid Row records. I got some of the Skid Row behind me, don't I? And his Colosseum II. In session work, he did a lot of session work. Over where I'm pointing, that way, is where I keep my Gary Moore bookshelf. He has shared a bookshelf with my classic Detroit rock and roll bands. Like Bob Seger and MC5 and whatnot. But even did New Age with Mo Foster. He did some New Age stuff, which makes the New Age stuff listenable. Not for an entire record, but one or two songs as a favorite of Mo. Mo has worked with Gary a time or three. And it was a hell of a show that I got to see with Gary Moore. It was a heck of a show. And you get to see Gary Moore live, share that too. Gary should still be, he won't be 72 by now. Jeez. So remember, fresh music is as important as fresh food. And have fun with your music. I didn't name every nuclear war song he had. It's not necessarily fun to hear about nuclear war. No matter how much the music was cool. In the World Zone. Cool song musically. But man, it's a bummer lyrically. But just remember Gary. Break out some your Gary Moore records and figure out your top 15. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you so much for watching.